Hello there guys, it's me Unstable Voltage and welcome to Hearts of Iron 4. I managed to get my hands on an early copy of HOI 4. It's the fourth game in the Hearts of Iron series, as you may well have guessed. It is from Paradox Development Studios, the same guys that make games such as Europa Universalis, Crusader Kings, Victoria, and more recently Stellaris. And I'm completely new to the Hearts of Iron series. This is one of the few Paradox games that I haven't played before, so I'm pretty much learning this game as I go along. I did play through the tutorial last night when I got my key, and sad to say, the tutorial is pretty much like you would expect from a lot of strategy games, especially Paradox ones, where it shows you some of the very basics and then basically just drops you in at the deep end and you kind of have to work out where you're going. So what I thought I would do in these first few videos is just play through the tutorial again to show you guys what it's all about. Hopefully I might pick up a thing or two that I missed when I played through the tutorial the first time. And as you play through the tutorial, it does kind of lead you into a campaign as Italy. So I might actually carry on and play that just for a short time until I find my feet and then restart and try a game from the beginning. So we have the option to play multiplayer. Multiplayer is up to 32 players, I believe, in this game. If we go in and single player, and you can see it's got the continue game there as Italy, that's because I was doing the tutorial. If you go into new game, you actually have, there's two different options you've got. You can either start from the 1st of January 1936, which is well before sort of any of the war sort of gets going, and well, actually, let me talk about this one first, because it makes more sense if we start with this one. So, if you start on the 14th of August 1939, you're more likely to have a game that is more similar to how history unfolded. At this point in the game, Germany's already consolidated all of its troops on the Polish border, ready to invade, and most of the historical alliances that happened in real history are already formed. So, the chances are that the Axis powers and the Allies powers are going to be pretty much how they were at the start of World War II, although it may change and develop as the game goes through. This also means that you're starting the game pretty much right at the start of the war and you get straight into the actual combat side of things. If you select the 1st of January 1936 as your starting point, a lot of those alliances and rivalries haven't really sort of taken shape yet. So if you start at this point in the game, there's a very real chance that the Axis and Allies powers are going to be different to what they were in history, and you might find that people are on different sides. Also, because this takes place several years before the war, it gives you more of an opportunity to be able to build up your civilian infrastructure, to be able to build up your economy, and actually get in a position to go to war. But we're not going to do either of those because we are going to go into the tutorial. So let's go ahead and do that. I will have learnt some of the things from the pre-release copy of the game, so it is not finished yet. This build, for all I know, may be a couple of months old. There are a couple of known bugs in this build, and Paradox are already working on them. So this game does use the Clausewitz engine, the same as EU4 and Stellaris and Crusader Kings, and I think all of the other Paradox Development Studios games. So you will notice a lot of things that are very similar. You've got the button up in the top left-hand corner that takes you into your sort of main screen about your nation. You have your sort of map buttons down here in the bottom right-hand corner. You have your sort of clock up here, which you can pause. This game doesn't tick over at 1 day at a time. This game ticks over at 1 hour at a time, though, so because obviously the scope of the game is a lot shorter than something like EU4 or Stellaris or something like that. And then in the top left-hand corner, we've got all of our buttons to go to our different screens, like research, diplomacy, trade, etc. Useful information like national unity, which is basically sort of how strong you are as a nation, how quickly you are likely to surrender in a war. Political power, which is a resource, as is manpower, as are factories. So there's three types of factories. You've got military factories, you've got naval dockyards, and civilian factories. And then over here, you've got your experience for your army, your navy, and your air. So this is the tutorial. There's 15 steps. This is basically telling me how to select units and provinces with left click, move units with right click, the mouse wheel zooms in and out, and if we hold the mouse wheel down it pans around. Yeah, all fairly straightforward things. So we have some objectives, which is to use all 19 of our military factories, use all 20 of our civilian factories, use all 11 of our naval dockyards, national focus is set, a division is queued for deployment, and 4 technologies are researching. Okay, so let's start with working along the tabs at the top. We'll start with our research slot. Now, as you can see, we have 4 research slots. Some nations only start with 3, but you can unlock more as time goes on. You will also see that there are some modifiers that alter our research time. I'm going to go ahead and not show that again because I already know what's going on. So we've got 4 research slots, and within the 4 different research slots there are actually all of these different tabs. So you've got your infantry, you've got support battalions, you've got armour, you've got artillery, you've got land doctrine, naval doctrine, air and air doctrine, engineering, and industry. So we're going to go through the ones that are highlighted, the ones that the game is recommending. Now you can see from these screens, ones that are in green are already researched, ones that are in this sort of yellow gold colour are ones that can be researched, and the ones that are greyed out are ones that we can't research yet because we don't have the prerequisite. You can research things ahead of time, but like EU4, you do get a head of time penalty for trying to research technology that is a little bit too far advanced. So the first technology it's suggesting that we do is support weapons, which will give basically extra stats to our infantry, cavalry, all of our different sort of regiments basically. Gives them some more offense and some more breakthrough. So let's go ahead and queue up support weapons. And again, it gives that information here, what it's actually giving us. So let's go ahead and research that. 141 days. We'll pick our second one. So let's look at land doctrine. This is suggesting that we go for this one here. So we already have trench warfare, which is plus 10 max entrenchment and plus 25% entrenchment speed. Technology is mutually exclusive with mobile warfare, superior firepower, and mass assault. So because we've already got trench warfare, we can't unlock any of these ones. We'd have to change them over. But it's suggesting that we go for Grand Battle Plan, which is plus 30% to max planning. Not 100% sure what all of these things actually do yet. I will learn them as time goes on. But there's our second technology. Let's get our third, and it is suggesting that we go for the electronic mechanical engineering. That knocks 2% off the research time for other tech, so that's well worth grabbing. And then finally, the fourth tech, it is suggesting we grab... It's actually got a couple of things queued up here. But it's either suggesting basic machine tools, which increases our production efficiency cap, or going for construction 1, which increases our construction speed. I think we will go for the production efficiency cap first, because that is slightly quicker. So now we've got 4 technologies all queued up to research. We've also got a notification here saying that we are at war with Ethiopia, and our current war participation is 0%. It says here that we start at war with Ethiopia, but we shouldn't be worried about that right now. We should go ahead and deal with the other notifications. So we've got civilian factories, military factories, and dockyards. We've also got national focus and divisions, no divisions in basic training. So first of all, let's go to civilian factories. So factories are built within provinces, and you can see here we have 20 factories. So we own 20 factories, and it says that only 12 of them are available for construction because 8 are in use. And the reason for that is if we actually look down here under consumer goods, it says with our current economic policy, the people expect 20% of the total number of our factories to produce consumer goods. This will need to be filled by civilian factories only, leaving us with 12 factories where 12 can be used for trade. Which is fair enough, because when you have factories in your nation, you can't really monopolise all of that factory's production for the war machine. Some of it has to be used for building consumer goods. So 20% of our factories have to be used for consumer goods. We're using 8 out of 20, which gives us 12 factories remaining. Now what this is saying here is that factories are actually used for production, and that production allows you to build other buildings. So what this wants us to do is all 3 civilian factories will be constructing new buildings according to their order in the construction queue. Civilian factories have been highlighted for your convenience. Click it to activate build mode, and when build mode is active, click on the map to queue the construction of a building. Hold shift and click to queue the maximum amount. So we're going to go ahead and click on civilian factories. We can see what the construction cost is, 7,200 construction. If we click on that, we can see all of the provinces that we own. Well, there's not actually individual provinces, these are individual states. If we zoom in, you can see the individual provinces, but we build in a per state not a per province manner. So we can see that Piedmont and Lombardy have 10 of 10 buildings, so we can't build anything more in those. But all of these ones that are green, you can see that they do have some building slots, so we can go ahead and we can start to queue up some of these buildings. And what you will see now is that we are using our factories. We're actually using 12 of our factories to build this building. And you can only use a maximum of 15 to build each one. But what we can do is we can go and queue a few more up. So let's go ahead and do that. Does it say here how many it wants us to build? Don't think we really need to. We can also build more military factories if we wanted to. But I think we have enough on the go. And they're going to build one at a time. So let's go and close that. We also have 3 military factories. So as well as having civilian factories produce production, which is used to build other buildings and also used for trade, because you can sort of trade away some of your factories to get some materials back, some resources, which is what we'll do later. So what we've got at the moment is we have 19 military factories that aren't in use, and we also have 11 dockyards that are not in use. So these are the production line screens. There are 2 types of production lines, military and naval, that use those two, the military factories and the dockyards respectively. And what this wants us to do here is to assign some of our factories to making certain bits of equipment. So if we start off by looking in infantry and artillery equipment, the first thing it wants us to do is to get some infantry equipment. If you're going to war, you obviously need guns and explosives and armor and things for your and helmets and uniforms and stuff. So we can start with infantry equipment, and we can sign up to a maximum of 15 factories. Now we only have 19 available. So what we're going to do, we're going to follow the build that it's saying here, and that wants us to queue up 10. So we've got 10 of our factories are being used to make these. Now as you see, if we only have a single factory, we make 1.05 military equipment per day. We need 2,700 to fully sort of equip out all of our troops. So if we use 10 times the amount of factories, we get 10 times the amount of production. It also uses 10 times the amount of resources, because it's now going to cost us 20 units of steel. It also wants us to get some support equipment. So this is things like radios and extra ammunition and med kits and things like that. It wants us to assign 4 factories to do that, so we will do. So now we're going to get 3.76 supplies a week. It's already currently filled, so we don't really need more. We might be able to reduce this. And this is actually using aluminium and steel. I see Paradox have decided to go with the Americanized aluminum as opposed to aluminium, even though they're a European country. Very interesting. It also wants us to queue up some artillery and put 3 factories on that. Now, artillery, we're already filled. Now, one thing you will notice is that because we've gone up to... See, we do have some tungsten available. We have 1 tungsten. But because we actually go up to 3 factories, we now have a deficit on tungsten up here. And it now wants us to queue up some of these planes here. So we'll go to the aircraft tab, and it wants us to build the BA-65, which is a close air support aircraft. It wants us to queue up 2 of those. Now you can see these require oil, and at the moment we don't actually currently have any oil. So if we queue up 2 factories here, then we are -2 on oil. And it also wants us to queue up some of the ships, because now we've used all 19 of our military factories. We need to move on to our dockyards, and it wants us to queue up some of these Mastral or Mastrale class ships, which are these destroyers. So we'll queue those up, and we will assign all 11 of our naval dockyards. You can assign more than you have for some reason, but 3 of them are greyed out because we don't have that many. So we'll assign 11. And although if you go over it, apparently you can do it, but it just costs you a lot more production for some reason, or does it? That's quite strange. We'll just run with the 11. So pretty much everything is filled with the exception out of the infantry equipment. It might even be worth reducing some from the artillery and reducing some from the close air support, and just putting that extra into the infantry equipment just to get that a little bit more quickly. So that's that done. We have no national focus set. So these are your national focuses. And these work a little bit like sort of idea groups in EU4 or sort of social policies. There is a tree so that you have to work your way down. And again, some of them I think are mutually exclusive. What it wants us to do is actually work down here because it wants us to work our way down to gaining this extra research slot. So then we can research 5 techs at a time instead of just 4. So we'll start with the Ethiopian War Logistics. That only takes 70 days. Doesn't have a prerequisite. And it will give us 2 infrastructure and 3 naval bases in a province within the Eritrea state. And it will give us 3 infrastructure and 4 naval bases in a province in the Somalian state. So let's go ahead and queue that up. Obviously, in order to do this, we need to have both of those states. If we don't own either of those, it will sort of mess this up. But we'll go ahead and start that as our national focus. 2 alerts left to deal with. First of all, we have no division in basic training. Before we do that, let's go ahead and deal with these insufficient resources. So what it's telling us we are short of is 12 oil and 1 rubber. And equipment will be produced at a reduced speed while factories lack the resources. So let's say we want to get ourselves 12 oil. We've got oil selected. We can see the United States have quite a lot. So what we want to do, you can only buy them in 8, so we've got 0, 8 or 12. So what we're going to do is we're going to get 12 from the USA, and it will require 12 convoys. We have 195 though, so we've got plenty of convoys to trade, and it'll cost us 2 of our factories. So we're going to be using 2 factories in order to be able to 2 of our civilian factories. So if I go ahead and send that deal there, if we then go back in and have a quick look at our constructions, you will now see that out of our factories, 2 are being used for imports. So 8 are being used for consumer goods, 10 are being used for construction, 2 are being used for imports. So instead of using 12 factories now to build buildings, we're only using 10 because 2 of them are being used for imports. We're also still down on 1 rubber. So we want to go in and trade. We will click on rubber. We can get that from the United Kingdom. We'll just grab 8. We can't get 1, so we'll just grab 8 and use 1 factory for that. So that'll sort that out once we've unpaused the game. And finally, we have no divisions in basic training. Now, where is this button? I was looking for this earlier and I couldn't find it. It must be up here somewhere. Is it under production or it's under recruit and deploy? Yeah, there we go. So we have, this is the recruit and deploy screen. This is where you queue new divisions for training and later on deployment. We recommend that you add a Division de Infanteria division to the queue. Divisions in training will first attempt to gather the equipment they require, and once they have the equipment, they will begin their training. Training progress can never exceed the equipment progress. Click the trade button to add a division for training. Once divisions have completed their training, they can be deployed to a location of your choice, and you may only deploy divisions in your core territory. Divisions can be produced serially or in parallel, so you can sort of build up a lot of units all together at the same time, but it will take longer than if you produce them one at a time. It also says that in an emergency, if the tides of war have turned against you, it may be viable to deploy your divisions before they have all their equipment and training, but this should be avoided when you can. So okay, it wants us to recruit a Division de Infanteria, so let's go ahead and click on train. I think those are just a sort of standard infantry unit, so we'll click on train. So can we get rid of that screen? Yes, we can. That's good. So now that your alerts are sorted out, you can start diving into the details of waging war. Italy starts war at Ethiopia, and you should not have much difficulty in winning a war once you learn how to do it. Move your camera in a southeastwards direction until you find Eritrea in Africa. Once your camera location has changed, select the divisions in the Eritrea state. So those guys they currently don't have a location. We can give them a location. We can go ahead and tell them where we want them to deploy. So we can deploy them in a particular province. But let us start by following the arrow down to Ethiopia. There it is. So here's Ethiopia, there's Addis Ababa. If we zoom out actually, let me see more of the map. So you can see how the map sort of looks in 1936. So this is right at the beginning of the game. So obviously Africa is mainly split up and owned by the European powers. There's still South Africa down there and there's still Ethiopia. But the rest of it is pretty much owned between France, Great Britain, Spain, Portugal, even a little bit of Belgium in there as well. What have we got down here? Liberia is in there as well. But the rest of it is very sort of chopped up, little tiny bit owned by Spain. Of course, you've got Saudi Arabia, Iran, Turkey, France owned a fair bit down here as well. The massive Soviet Union. Japan is also absolutely monstrous there as well. And of course you've got British Raj. So that's the sort of how the world looks at this point. If we go over and have a look at the Americas, you can see we've got Canada up there, Denmark owning what is Greenland, and we've got the USA and Mexico. Everything looks pretty much how you'd expect it to at that point in history, but regardless, what we should be doing is going in here to Ethiopia. So what the tutorial actually wants us to do is to select all of our divisions. So there's 14 divisions up here. We want to go ahead and select them all. So now we're going to learn how to start planning an offensive. Divisions can join together in armies, and an army is used to draw battle plans, and they can be assigned to a commander to lead them. Click the new army button at the bottom of the screen. So with a number of divisions selected, you click this button down here at the bottom, and that puts them in an army. So an army can be given given orders by drawing battle plans. And we need to use the front line button to set up where our front line's going to be. So what we actually want to do is we're going to be attacking Addis Ababa. That is kind of the point of this exercise. And we've got all of our units up here. We have 3 divisions of the Division di Fanteria. We have 1 Division Alpina. So these are like sort of mountain specialized troops. We've got another 5 divisions of basic infantry over here, and another 5 divisions of basic infantry over here. And we also have some more down here on this bottom flank, which it doesn't really tell us to do anything with these, but I did decide to start using them when I did the tutorial before. So what it wants us to do is it wants us to click this front line button right here, and then it wants us to select the border to Ethiopia. So if we go ahead and click this here, you'll now see this sort of jagged line. So we've now set a front line. We're saying this is the front line between our nation and who we are at war with. But what it wants us to do now is draw an offensive line. So what we do is we click the offensive line. We have to right click for this one, but we draw between those 3 provinces, and we now have an offensive line. So what's going to happen is our troops will actually push forwards from the front line and push forwards, or try and push into Ethiopia until they reach this line. That's kind of the point of what they are doing. The next thing it wants us to do is to queue up our air wings, but we will do that in the next video because we have gone over the 20-minute mark. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. I hope you are going to be enjoying Hearts of Iron 4. Hopefully I pick this game up fairly quickly, and then we can start having some fun, maybe playing as a different nation from scratch and not going through the tutorial. So I'll see you guys on the next video, but until then, goodbye for now.